So.
Good morning, everybody. It's 8:30 by the clock on the wall, which we'll consider our official time. My name is Buck Malick. I reside in the town of Hudson, and I'm the chair of the St. Croix County Zoning Board of Adjustment. Today is July 25th, 2024. We're in the Government Center's room 1284. This is the time and this is the place that were announced for this meeting. And so I call it to order, and I'll ask the members of the board and the members of the staff who expect to speak later in the day to each introduce themselves, which sets up the sound equipment, as well as introducing you all. Mr. Peterson?
Dave Peterson, citizen member, Town of Kinnickinnick.
Joe Miller, citizen member, Town of Hammond.
Greg Telejohn, County Board Supervisor, District 14, representing Aaron Prairie, Richmond Township, and a little bit of Warren.
Dave Nickham, citizen member, Town of Baldwin.
Steve Smart, citizen member, Town of Hudson, alternate.
Mike Wozniak, land use administrator for the county.
Jason Cheezit, Community Development Director.
Very good. And Julie Peterson is taking notes and doing other work as opportunity provides. For those of you who intend to speak, before you speak, please sign in and take your oath to tell the truth when you sign in there. We board members need to deal with the minutes. We've been provided a draft of the minutes. Board members, unless you've got changes to propose to the draft you were given, we will deem them to be approved. Does anybody have edits or changes for the minutes? Seeing none, we will deem them to be approved. I'll make a statement that I believe that this meeting was properly noticed and published. That means meeting the right time frames, being published in the official county newspaper, all the things that are required by state law and county ordinance. I believe that to be true, but if there's anybody in the room who thinks that there is some mistake or omission in the publication of the notice for this meeting, please speak now and we'll deal with it. Very good. We have one item of board business that doesn't mean much to the public, but I'd like to dispose of it quickly, and that is the potential replacement of our vice chair and an election of a new vice chair. So it's item 6 on your agendas, but I'm pulling it way up to the above the announcements. Mr. Miller, do you have a statement you want to make?
No, I'm just ready to do the nominations.
Okay, so as I understand it, you indicated to the board a couple of meetings ago that your life had changed and you didn't want to be vice chair anymore, and you are now nominating Mr. Peterson.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay. Strictly speaking, under Robert's rules, nominations don't require a second, but I will call for any other nominations for the office of vice chair of this board. Are there any other nominations, including possible self-nominations? There's nothing wrong with that. Anybody else interested in being the vice chair of this board? Don't all jump at once. Last chance. Anybody? All right, there being only one nominee, I will declare that Mr. Peterson is our new vice chair. We'll give you a hand, Dave. And hold.
20-page statement here if you
Great. Please give it to the secretary for the record. All right. Now, I'm proposing to make another change in our agenda, and that is to move the announcement item called the update on the Baldwin Airport and move it way down below number 5, the Yacht Club. There's nobody here from the Baldwin Airport matter. It's strictly the staff and the board, and so it should be of prejudice to nobody to change that around, and it will have the effect of moving the other 5 items up a little bit faster. Board members, if you object to my making that change, please speak now and we can subject it to a motion and a vote. Hearing none, we'll take that as okay with you. That would then put us ready to hear the first of the Roscon property matters. Are you speaking for the staff on this one, Mr. Cheezer?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the board, so I can start with our first conditional use permit today. It was submitted by Roscon Properties LLC, and they are requesting a conditional use permit to construct a two-family residence in an R2 residential zoning district pursuant to section 15.285 of the St. Croix County zoning ordinance. The property affected is located in the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter of section 31, town 29 north, range 18 west, located in the town of Warren. The parcel number is 042-1085-31-110. Public hearing notice was published in the Star Observer on July 11th and July 18th prior to this hearing, so the proper Class 2 notice was published. Just getting to the staff report here. So on the screen right here, submitted as part of the application, is the approval from the town of Warren. So we've got two conditional use permits in that today for very similar duplexes. And this letter dated July 16th, 2024, does approve of both of these CUP requests. And that was submitted and that by Deanna Shermer, and that the clerk treasurer of Warren. Okay, so the total property size right now is 6.97 acres, and it will be divided into two lots, and on each one of those lots, they're proposing an 1,167 square foot duplex for each side, so that would be double actually for each lot. All the buildings will take and meet the road setback and side yard setback. This here is an aerial.
Did you say those are applications for two separate duplexes on two lots?
Correct. So there is.
Why don't we have two applications then?
We do, and so there's another agenda item, and that agenda item number 2 is regarding this same property.
Very good.
So there's a preliminary minor CSM pending in our office right now to split this existing parcel into two lots. You'll see that farther down below. And then your business item 1 and your business item 2 is for a duplex on each one of those lots. And so here is the layout. And so here's the one proposed duplex, and here's another proposed duplex. Again, that CSM has not been filed yet. The parking for each duplex will be in front of the garages because each one of them will have an attached garage. Soil test was completed on the lot, and there are suitable soils there for an in-ground septic system. And driveway access, and that to lot 16 here is through a driveway easement. Here's a rendering of what the duplex would look like. So the garages, of course, are on the back side here, and basically the wall here partitioning between each side of the units. So basically a 2-stall attached garage. We've seen kind of some plans like this in the past, but basically they would be 3 bedrooms. So there's one master here and then 2 other bedrooms and then a family area, kitchen, bath area on each duplex. They're basically mirrored concepts. So if we look at the application, the applicant is wanting to construct a 2-family duplex on each one of those new lots. There is no impact as the proposed duplex homes will access a new town road within the major plat and with existing utilities. And there's already 4 existing 2-family duplexes on adjoining lots. And in the R2 zoning classification, it does allow for a 2-family home or a duplex as a CUP request. So it does align with the ordinance there. The applicant says that there is no impact to public health, safety, or general welfare with the access and everything like it is proposed. And we don't believe that it'll constitute any additional problems in the neighborhood, any kind of noise, and that's not already there because we've already got the 4 duplexes. So we believe that staff and that all the criteria for the housing section have been met, and each unit meets the 500 square foot in the ordinance requirement because each unit is 1,167 square feet. And that sums up my staff report.
Customarily, we ask next if the board members have any questions to ask to clarify the staff report. Then we ask if there's anybody in the room who wants to speak in favor of the application to supplement what we've already heard or contradict what we've already heard for that matter. And then we ask if there's anybody in the room who wants to speak against the conditional use permit and the proposed conditions. And lastly, we ask if there's anybody who is neither for nor against necessarily, but has something to contribute to us making a better decision. So, board members, do you have any questions for Mr. Cheeset?
Yeah, on that driveway easement, is it spelled out anywhere as far as who's responsible for paving and snow plowing and maintenance and that sort of stuff?
Not that I'm aware of yet, nope.
So do we assume by default then that it's the homeowner's responsibility?
It would be the homeowner's responsibility unless there's some kind of special arrangement with the owners of lot 17, because it would be their access only. It's not gonna be a town road, or it's not gonna serve other homes, it's only that one duplex, so.
Okay, thanks.
The engineer mentioned something about water elevating the road or something. What was that about?
Yeah, so there's a drainage easement here on the north side of lots 16 and 17. It's kind of hard to see, but you can kind of see it starts here on lot 16, follows the contiguous buildable area, that orange line here up, and then it basically follows the north side of the access easement here over to the cul-de-sac. And so that whole area there is all drainage. So what they're saying is that they want that driveway elevated at least to this 1008 level, so that it's above that drainage easement area.
Any other questions for Mr. Cheeset? Okay. Does anybody in the room want to speak to this application? I think I see Mr. Stout. Are you agreeing with what we've heard so far? Or? Yeah, Mr. Stout, for the record, says that he agrees with what's been heard and has nothing to add to it. Is there anybody else who wants to speak in favor of this application or opposed to this application? Or not necessarily for nor against, but has something to say about it that will help us make a better decision? No? I'm not terribly surprised. We've seen these duplexes in this area for several years now. We approved one just a few months ago, I believe. So anybody, anything more to say? Otherwise, we might move right ahead to make a decision on this one without, well, we'll see where the questioning goes if there is any discussion. Or is there any points any of you board members want to make that have to do with the conditions recommended by the staff on this conditional use permit?
Question, how does the CSM figure into this? Do we have to record that as required before the final approval?
Yeah, you would never allow, you'd never issue the necessary building permits and stuff without it being recorded, right?
Correct. So the steps will be that the applicant will have to file the CSM and complete the minor subdivision approval process with our staff. And then after that, they would be able to take and pull the permits for the duplexes. Or the duplex in this case, so, yep.
Actually, I guess it probably falls to the town's building inspector to see that those steps are followed, right?
Correct, and that, so underneath the Wisconsin Uniform Dwelling Code, all other ordinances must be met before the building permit is issued, so that is the last permit that can be issued, so, yep.
And a copy of our decision here today on the conditional use permit will also be recorded for the building inspector to look at and follow along with.
Absolutely.
Yep. Good question, Mr. Peterson. We haven't had it come up for some months now. Anything else, board members, or does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll move we approve the conditional use permit as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, that's Peterson, Telejohn. Further discussion? All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
That's unanimously approved. Good. Let's look at the next one, which is also from Roscon, and that's for the other duplex on the adjoining lot, right?
Correct, Mr. Chair.
I got confused because some of the paperwork in the next file seemed to talk about a lot 19, and I began to worry that there were 3 duplexes being covered in 2 applications. But as I understand your presentation just a little while ago, we're only dealing with the subdivision of existing lot 14 into 16 and 17. Lot 19 has nothing to do with it.
You are correct, Mr. Chair. I believe that was a typo. So, so the next one also was submitted by Roscon Properties LLC, and that for a 2-family duplex in an R2 residential zoning district pursuant to section 15.285 of the St. Croix County zoning ordinance. The property affected is the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter of section 31, town 29 north, range 18 west, located in the town of Warren. The parcel number is 042-1085-31-110. And again, for this application, and that the proper Class 2 notice was published in the Star Observer on July 11th and July 18th. And that for this hearing, we also provided the property owners within 300 feet of the property a copy of the hearing notice as well.
Am I right to think that your staff analysis and your staff report are essentially a clone of the one you just presented?
Yep, exactly, and that,
Then
except
let
this
me-
one here, the conditional use permit application, just to keep it separate, and that is CUP 2024-014, whereas the previous one was 2024-013. So, other
Yeah.
than that, the facts are all the same for this property.
So, board members, do you have any questions that are pertinent to this application? No? Members of the audience, anything to say with respect to this one? I think then that we can just move to a decision on it, so long as those who may be reviewing our tape now or in the future of the record of this meeting understand that if they skipped ahead to this agenda item, they should go back to the previous one to hear the full details on it. Given that, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this application as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Is there a second? I'll be happy to second it. Any further discussion? All in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimously approved. Okay, now you probably feel safe in leaving. Yeah, all right. Get your hammer out and start pounding nails. All right, our next matter of business is the Foster application for a conditional use permit, this time for a contractor storage yard in the town of Somerset. And you're making the presentation, Mr. Wozniak?
I will, and I'm just going to give you a copy of the draft decision document to peruse if you so choose while I'm presenting.
For the record, Mr. Wozniak has told us out of range of his microphone that he's giving us a draft of the staff's proposal of findings of fact and conclusions of law. If we get over the threshold question of yes or no, and we want to talk about how, then he's got some suggestions for us.
Okay, you have Board of Adjustment members and public applicant, the applicants here. I'll note you have on your agenda this item for consideration of a conditional use permit for a contractor storage yard in an R2 residential zoning district, subject to the applicable provisions in Chapter 15, the county zoning ordinance. I'll note that Steve and Jessica Foster are requesting a conditional use permit for a contractor storage yard on property in the southeast quarter of Section 28 in the town of Somerset. The address would be 499 192nd Ave. This item has been properly noticed for a public hearing for today's meeting. And I will just get down to our, we have a PowerPoint style staff report for this one, and bear with me a moment if I can get this legible. Let's see. Just slightly use that. All right. Included with your materials are the staff report, which I'm running through, and a copy of the application submitted by the Fosters. I'll note on this that this relates to a well and pump service maintenance service, and this business has been operating for a number of years, and it was brought to the county's attention that it was there. Haven't really had complaints, but it is subject to a contractor storage yard conditional use permit. And so basically, as an after the fact zoning approval, you're being asked to consider this today. And I'll note that we have a few details on the type of equipment involved in the contractor storage aspect of this. I won't spend time running through these. You can see them on the screen. If you have any questions about what's proposed to be stored and kept on the property as part of the business operation, either I can answer them, or the applicant is here and could also further detail the nature of their business. In terms of background, there would be no employees. Basically, the applicant has help from spouse and daughter on occasion. Noted typical hours of operation, and there could be special hours for emergency situations off-site. All work is conducted off-site. There's an existing residence and a pout system on-site, and the storage area has existing natural screening, and a driveway exists that services the home and the storage area. Storage space is gated, and all business vehicles would be stored in the equipment area. A little more background, any future outdoor storage would need to meet applicable regulations. No signs are proposed, and no outdoor security lighting. Any future lighting, of course, would have to be directed downward, as is generally the county standard. and no sales or customers on site. Box trucks make deliveries for materials around twice a month. Just a little visual of the general area. It's in an R1 zone. It's generally a low-density area. You can see a mining operation off to the east of the property. Again, showing the zoning map, you can see the R1. Actually, this site is R2, but it abuts R1 zoning, if I could clarify, with the property highlighted here. Surrounding land uses, we've noted property to the north, 35 acres undeveloped. Property to the east is a 40-acre residential parcel, and properties to the west and south are currently permitted as a non-metallic mine. And there are some other residences on 192nd Ave. There is a site plan that kind of documents what's there, but it might be more illustrative to look at the photos that were included in the staff report, and you can see basically the area where the contractor storage occurs. And again, there is a fair amount of natural screening, and so it's fairly private in that respect. Again, more photos of existing conditions out there. There are a couple storage containers that are used to store equipment, and there's an accessory building that also would be used to store some equipment, as well as the outdoor storage of vehicles and equipment. The town board has recommended approval for use of 4.5 acres of the current lot, and not the entirety of the lot. And that matches up with what the applicant is proposing to use or has been using. As you're aware, your options are to approve the request, deny the request, or table and postpone the decision to consider information gathered or request additional information. We've included in the staff report some proposed findings. I can also pull up the copy of the draft decision document that does have about a dozen recommended conditions for approval if the board chooses to approve the request. The findings are consistent with the material I've gone over in the staff report in terms of documenting what the request is. And let me actually, decision document. See if I can find that decision document, or
I see you're recommending a one-year review, as we've done in a number of cases.
yes.
Condition 8.
I'm going to just run through quickly the decision. We think this, in terms of conclusions of law, we believe this matches up with the criteria for a conditional use permit. Unless the board has any questions about that, I won't detail those conclusions of law. The last 5 conditions in the draft decision document are standard conditions, and I don't think you would have any questions of those. But I think the pertinent stuff here is we're indicating that berms on the site shall be a minimum of 6 feet tall, and any tree/landscaping planting shall obtain 80% opacity within 3 years. That's just a standard for contractor storage yards in our ordinance. And this site has a lot of natural screening, so it's really not a challenge to achieve that for this, for this property owner. We've indicated what the equipment storage would be, and that matches up with what was included in the staff report. Basically, the equipment and materials associated with the well drilling and maintenance business. And the hours of operations were noted generally between 7:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, with occasional Saturdays and special hours if maybe emergency situations arise for customers. And then basically this provides for off-street parking and storage of the equipment, so there really aren't any concerns of that nature, but it's referenced in the conditions because that's simply a requirement. At that, I think it's good to get this business in the fold with a zoning permit. I don't see any issues, and the town is supportive of it. So as our draft decision document indicates, staff recommends you act to approve this, subject to the findings, conclusions of law, and conditions referenced in that document.
I see the plat was filed in June of '96 to create the lot this is located on, and I'm inferring from that the business was begun on this location at that date, which might mean it's actually grandfathered.
Well,
So
we had
long as-
indicated, Max Erickson, the planner on our staff, had worked on this, but what Max had relayed to me is the applicant had indicated it was about 8 years, or 10 years. 10 years it's been operating.
Board members, questions?
Yeah, on that item 4, the equipment being limited to, what's his appeal process if he has a chance to buy a separate, or another drilling rig or another piece of heavy equipment? Has he got to come to the board and get permission before he does that, or how do we deal with that?
We have quite a few contractor yards, and I'll be honest, we're probably not always hearing from the operators when they change out or maybe add some equipment. If we would ask that they do contact us, if it's not going to be a substantive change in terms of the amount of space taken up for the storage, I don't think staff would have a problem just putting a note in the file and working with them. If it's substantive, they might have to come back to the board and have their permit revised.
So we could, just, keying off your comment, Mr. Miller, and the town's comment that they didn't want more than 4.5 acres devoted to this business of the total lot size. We could remove the list and not attempt to be prescriptive about their equipment so long as they stay within the area delineated on the map they submitted.
I would certainly support that idea.
And, this is located right next to a non-metallic mine, and it's a complementary business, and both of them probably produce a little dust. This probably produces much less dust than the sand and gravel pit next to it. It would seem really uncontroversial so long as they don't grow in size geographically without being concerned of what kind of equipment and how many weld rigs and how many trucks and that kind of thing. That's not like a lot of our contractor storage yards where it does make a difference, a significant difference, like, for example, that one with the separator, that limestone operation. If you had 2 of those, there might suddenly be a real dust problem in the neighborhood, which was a concern of ours. Could you see an amendment to this proposal, Mr. Wozniak, that would, instead of having that list of things, would have just a limitation of no more than 4.5 acres were shown on the map that was submitted, the plat, or the graphic that was submitted?
Certainly, I think that's at the discretion of the Board of Adjustment.
Do you have a sense that we're getting into setting a bad precedent here if we go in that direction?
Well, I guess what I'd say is the applicant could probably indicate what their any expectations about expanding, but based on the size and scope of the business, there's limits on probably how much equipment that the applicant's going to own and operate on that site, so.
Noted, but of course, our decisions are permanent, and the applicant can sell the business, and they'd still have the same
Yeah.
approval. Their heirs could take it over and run it, and so it has the potential to be perpetual, so we need to get it right. Do you see a problem, Mr. Chiza? This appears to be a somewhat unique property for a contractor storage yard.
No, Mr. Chair, I don't see any problem. And as far as the amount of equipment or machines that they have on site, I would just ask the board to think, is there a difference in impact if they've got 2 drill rigs versus 3 drill rigs, you know, and the answer is probably not substantial. So I think that you could take and limit it to just the size of the site, the 4.5 acres, and that would be sufficient.
All right, let's put that in the holding zone. Board members, do you have any other questions with respect to this application here? Okay, let's hear from anybody else in the room who wants to speak to this application. The applicants are here, I believe. Do you wish to speak? Do you differ? Do you have an opinion on this little discussion you've just been hearing? All right, and just further, he's saying everything seems to have been accurately presented. And as far as this point about possibly just limiting the space of your business rather than limiting the equipment, you're okay with that? Yes. For the record, he's stating yes, he is. And for the record, you are Mr. Foster? Yes. Yeah. You and your wife own this business, I suppose? Yes. Yeah. And you own the property? Yes. Yeah. Answers are affirmative to both those questions. Is there anybody else in the room who wants to speak with respect to this application? Okay, I think we have only one issue so far, but others might surface. Board members, do you want to do a little crafting of the condition to deal with this along the lines that Joe has suggested here? Are there any other issues in your mind that would cause us to modify the staff suggestion at all? No? All right, somebody want to propose some actual words? Would we take out the words in yellow and put something else in there? Like limited to 4.5 acres in the place indicated on the, what was submitted, map or plat or the materials submitted, that catches it, right? So instead of what's in yellow there, we'd say equipment storage shall be limited to 4.5 acres as shown on the materials submitted. Does that work for everybody, maybe?
Works for me, yeah.
Okay, and next step is a motion that would incorporate that modification and otherwise adopt the staff recommendation, probably, unless somebody's going in a different direction here.
Okay, I'll make the motion, we approve this with the change to item 4 to make it being limited to the area of the plat map as submitted.
Probably the materials submitted have that overhead picture as maybe the very best way of showing what 4.5 acres we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, good.
I'll second that.
Second from Mr. Telejohn. Anything else in discussion of this? No? All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It's unanimously approved with that small modification, otherwise in the terms that Mr. Wozniak proposed. Okay. So next up would be the Anderson Lopno application. Now, this one is not a conditional use permit, it's a variance request. So we have to make specific findings pursuant to the state law and our own ordinances in order to approve a variance.
Are you ready, Mr. Chair?
I'm ready. How about
Okay.
the rest of you? Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. So this application was tabled or postponed from last month's meeting because we hadn't received DNR feedback yet at that point. And as of today, we still have not received DNR feedback. But that being said, the DNR has had ample time to take and respond with any comments that they might have on this variance request. So I will proceed with the application. So Ellen Anderson and Robert Lopnow are requesting a variance to section 17.36 of the St. Croix County Lower St. Croix Riverway Ordinance for a reduced ordinary high water mark setback to the St. Croix River. Property affected is located in Government Lot 1 of Section 25, Town 28 North, Range 20 West, in the town of Troy. The address of the property is 122 Black Bass Road, River Falls, Wisconsin. A Class 2 notice was published in the Star Observer on July 11th and July 18th, as well as back in June, before the June Board of Adjustment meeting for this hearing, and all the property owners within 300 feet of the property were also notified. So the property is 3.1 acres in size. The base zoning, because it's in the town of Troy, they have their own zoning, so it's zoned underneath town zoning. The property is approximately 315 feet wide. The ordinary high water mark elevation is 680 feet. There is a bluff or a slope preservation zone, but this building is not located within the slope preservation zone. There is also some floodplain on the property down by the water, and that floodplain elevation is 692 feet. The building in question today is a carport slash garage, and the total square footage of that structure is 480 square feet. The structure is after the fact because it was constructed in the fall of 2023 without obtaining any permits or approval from the county or the town for the building inspections. When they completed the survey, that is when they found out that the building is within the 200-foot setback of the ordinary high water mark. And the applicant consequently is requesting this variance to allow the accessory structure to remain in its current location on the site. So with that, we've got an aerial map here. You can see where the green dot is, and that is the house of the property. The house is fairly close to the bluff line itself. You can see all the terrain here in this light brown, and then we're down to the water itself. You can see on site that most of the property is wooded, and because of that wooded cover on site, the new carport or the garage that we're talking about is not being able to be viewed from 200 feet riverward of the ordinary high water mark, which is the requirement. So it is visually inconspicuous on site. And that's what this chart here shows. So this is an elevation sketch showing in that from the 250 feet that the building would be missed. And it does have that slanted rafter roof approach, and so, but it does miss, or it is not conspicuous from the river. Also, when we're talking about the St. Croix, there is a 100-foot bluff line setback, and it does not meet the 100-foot bluff line setback, but it does meet the 40-foot bluff line setback. And again, it is not in the slope preservation zone. If we look at this site survey, you can see the bluff line is clearly marked here in this dashed line. And then the 40-foot setback is right here. It comes right behind the house and kind of behind the existing shed and the existing deck. And then the new carport, and that is between the 40 and the 100-foot bluff line setback. And the soil absorption field for the sewer is beyond the 100-foot setback. There is a 50-foot easement for the access road going across the backside of the property. There's a fence up here. So kind of this whole area from the house, the carport, and the sewage field, and that all drains back into this lower area, which would be farther east on the property. As far as terrain goes, you can see everything from the house towards the water is going to be slope preservation zone. It's very steep. It's all bluff area. Everything over here is a little bit steeper than what it is on the north side of the driveway. Here you can see the terrain is a little bit more gradually.
While you're on that slide, could you trace the approximate location of the 200-foot setback from the water that they're seeking a variance from?
Yeah, it's a little bit harder to do, but you can see up here, we've got the survey markers. We've got one marker that's kind of in the water there a little bit, but that there is about 159 feet. And so we're probably looking at someplace in here, about halfway between the 40-foot bluff line setback and the 100-foot setback would be approximately the 200 feet from the ordinary high water mark, approximately, because the existing building from the ordinary high water mark is 168.1. So it's going to be approximately in the middle here, because we need roughly 32 more feet before it hits the 200-foot setback. The applicant does have a set of steps that come down over here, down to the water. And then they, like I said, they've got an existing small shed. Any other questions on the site survey map here? It really lays it out pretty nicely. Okay, hearing none, I'll move on. So here is the view from the driveway coming up to the existing carport garage. You're able to see the slanted roof here, and right over here on the left-hand side of that building, or on the east side of that building, you can see it drops off pretty rapidly. This is where there was an existing wall that was constructed to try to retain the soil, but that retaining wall has since failed, and it's laying down. You'll see in other pictures. That picture was taken April 22nd, 2024. So this is looking at the east side of the shed, or the left side, as I mentioned before. We've got the sewer tanks here. They're not an issue, and that the building's far enough away from the tank. It only has to be 5 feet. But here you're able to see the block retaining wall that they had and how it failed. Okay. So in the application, the applicant talked about the hardship, physical property limitations, and whether it was contrary to public interest. I'm not going to read all of that because that was included in your packet. As far as the review of the performance standards, the first one is the ordinary high water mark setback. It has to be at least 200 feet. The current building does not meet that standard, so that's why they're here for the variance. The bluff line setback of 100 feet, they also do not meet, so that's another reason why they're here for the variance. But the building does meet the 40-foot bluff line setback, but the performance standards must be met in order to be at 40 feet from the bluff line. And so when we look at that, they meet the first one because a site profile survey shows that it will not be visible from 250 feet in the middle of the river. And the structure is not located within a slope preservation zone. However, provision 3, in that they do not currently meet because it requires the building to be earth tone in color. And right now that building is more of like a fire red or a bright red. So that is a provision that they would not meet. So that would not allow them to be at the 40-foot bluff line setback unless the color was changed. And then the building being visually inconspicuous from the river, and with that profile view, it is visually inconspicuous, so they do meet that requirement. And they also meet the 25-foot side yard setback from any of the exterior side lot lines. When we look at the performance standards as far as the color and that, again, it's bright red, so it doesn't take and comply with earth tone. The structure is not designated as a historic building, and so that is not applicable. There isn't any signs on the building, and there's no signs being proposed as part of this application. Again, it's not in the slope preservation zone. As far as erosion control, that could be improved on site, potentially capturing the runoff from the roof, or doing some stormwater, and that, ponding, and that might help. Getting that water away from the back of the wall would help if the board allows the building to remain in its current location. There's no wetlands on site. And it is dealing with filling and grading and that, but it is farther than 40 feet from the slope preservation zone. The application stated that they put it in the current spot because they didn't have to remove a bunch of trees, whereas if they were to move it to a compliant spot on the property, they would have to remove a bunch of trees. So that is something to consider. And again, we'd like to have more plans about the stormwater and the stabilization of the site with the erosion. And a conditional use permit is not required for it, so it's only the variance. And that basically summarizes our staff report. So with that, I'll take any questions from the board.
Is the color of the garage a match for the color of the house? I can't quite tell from this picture on page 90 whether the house is also red or is it brown, earth tone.
It kind of looks like it's kind of red, but I actually wasn't on site, so I can't answer that question. That'd be a good one for the applicant.
Yeah,
House there, it looks red.
that's the house, yeah, and I can't tell whether it's red or brown. It looks more red than brown, but yeah. What did you do any, well, I suppose if you had, you'd have noted it in your report, but I'm kind of skeptical about this idea that it's located where it is in order to save trees. So the 200 yards from the ordinary high water mark, 200 feet from the ordinary high water mark comes across the driveway before the turnoff to the shed. And evidently there's a kind of a turnaround opposite the shed from the driveway. It's closer to Black Bass Road than it is to the river, this line. Do we Let's see, do any of your pictures show what trees there are at that location and between there and Black Bass Road?
Mr. Chair, board members, I could just clarify. I was on site back in that April visit. The way it was represented to us by the applicant is that particular area where the garage structure was constructed, there weren't any trees required for removal. If you were to take a compliant location further eastward on the driveway, the property does slope away from the river, and there would be some trees that would have to be removed were they to let's just say this request were denied and they wanted to move or construct a garage further east on the lot, then that's one of the arguments that they posed, is that they would have to remove some trees and it might have more impact on a neighboring property to the north.
Almost as much, I'm not going there. Did you count the trees? Do you know their diameter, breast height?
We didn't count the trees that would have to be removed for an alternative location, because they'd have to go through a permitting process on that. We didn't assume that would be addressed today.
Yeah, do you have a picture? I mean, did you take pictures in addition to the ones you included in our homework then? And one of them that would show that location with the existing trees?
I'm not sure, Jason, if there was anything else in the staff report.
Nope, those were the only pictures, but I will just point back to this aerial map. It's
Yeah.
not great, but you can see the driveway coming in here, and then it comes to the Y. The Y is right here going to the shed, and then the Y coming here towards the house would be where that new building, which is on that part of the variance application today. So as far as the slope, it's much steeper, dropping off to this lower area back by Black Bass Road. So if the other location would be alternative, it would be in this area someplace, which you can see, it looks like there's some evergreens, and it looks like there's probably some popple or aspen in that location.
It appears to me that the contour lines are even more widely separated where the 200-foot setback line crosses the driveway than they are in the present location of that building.
That would be a correct statement, Mr. Chair.
So it's
Yes.
actually flatter.
Yeah, so let me scroll down here a little bit. So again, with the building right now being 168 feet, and between a 100-foot setback and 40-foot, that's about 60 feet. So that would mean, to comply with the 200-foot setback, the front edge of the building here would be roughly halfway in between these two lines, and that for the setbacks. And so you are correct when you said that the Y of the driveway is probably within the 200-foot setback, but slightly outside of that area. And on the north side of the driveway here, that's where the topography flattens out, versus down here by the sewage field, and that we still have a lot of contour and a lot of grade.
Mr. Chair, just one more clarification. We haven't heard from the property owner to the north. We have heard from the property owner to the south, and this current location isn't visible from them, but they just felt strongly that it's important to adhere to the rules and standards and properly go through the permitting process. They indicated they had to do that in making improvements to their place, and felt others should as well. So that was the comment we received from that property owner to the south.
You didn't include it in your, in the packet for us. Are there any other?
It was a verbal, it wasn't a written.
And you didn't feel
Or,
like summarizing it? And is that the only neighbor comment that you
Yes.
got? Okay, other board members?
When you were there and did your site visit, did you have any, take a look at the house, and can you recollect what color it was, or?
It's, and I just asked the applicant for clarification, trying to jog my memory from April. It's a similar color, but it's not as bright
But
as the garage structure.
you'd call it red.
Yeah, red, brownish red.
I heard a woman speak, and I'm guessing that it's Ms. Anderson, and she said she calls it earth tone red, like Georgia clay, maybe. Yeah, not something we typically find in the St. Croix Valley. Okay, anybody else questions?
So I just want to be clear for the board, and that basically the board, has a couple of different options. But if this variance is approved, they'll be able to keep the building there, and the board could put conditions on it for that. If the variance is denied, that would essentially mean that the Anderson Lopnows would have to take and tear out that building. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. That's really what's being asked. So, okay?
On the photo you got up there, it shows some bare dirt to the left-hand side of the building there. Is that any sort of topsoil, or is that just kind of organic, or just dirt that was left over for fill, so it would not support a lawn?
That dirt along here,
Yes.
and that, yeah, so that is where, I believe a lot of it is class 5 and probably some sand from the building pad and the concrete inside the building. But that is where the existing cinder block retaining wall was that failed, and I'm assuming it failed because of the water coming off from the roof here and just not being able to support it.
Were the building to remain on the back side of the garage, there would have to be some restoration or establishment of vegetation as well. There's a bit of erosion that's occurred on the other side as well, is what I'm saying.
I guess I'm feeling, I have some concerns about that color. I know it's called earth tone, but would we be setting a precedence by letting that slip through at that?
Yeah, let's find out if we have other people who'd like to testify here while we got the hearing open. So, do the applicants want to speak at this point? Use our
Please go up to the
microphone, please.
podium. Yeah, thank you.
We make a record for eternity here, so that others can look at it, and other applicants can look at what decisions we've made in the past and what precedents there might be. And of course, if it's appealed to the courts, because somebody doesn't like our decision, they make a transcript from all the words that are said. So we need to catch all of your testimony. Am I right in identifying you as Ms. Anderson and Mr. Lopno, the
Correct.
applicants?
Yes, sir.
Great. Say your piece.
Well, I think we'd like to try to answer some of the things that you've asked questions about as much as possible. We had a contractor build this carport for us, and their work obviously failed. And we're waiting for a decision, a positive decision, and we want to rebuild down there as soon as we would get approval. But we can't do it without that, without permit. And it would be, we want to have a system there that's more amenable to water protection and to the land. But again,
Did you use a contractor that you had heard had experience working in the St. Croix Riverway with our regulations? Is that why you chose them? Because
No.
they had done work in the Riverway?
No, I think we chose badly, and we didn't know that we had chosen badly. In any case, the garage's structure is in good shape, and we'd like to keep it. And the other thing I wanted to say, and Bob probably had some comments as well, but that the trees, we love our trees, and we have a lot of mature trees, and sorry that the DNR or that the photos don't really show that very well, but we've been trying to protect those trees for all the time that we've lived there. And we want to keep them there. So that's a really important value for us.
How long have you lived there?
Well, I've owned it for 10 years, property.
Okay, and what have you done to protect trees?
Or trees?
Yeah, you said you had protected your trees. I'm wondering, what does that mean? Like treatment for oak wilt, or periodic trimming by a tree service, or planting, or watering, or what have you done to protect the trees already?
Well, number one, we don't cut them down unless it's necessary to do so. And so we also, yes, we water them, and yes, we trim them ourselves. Anything else? What would you add, Tom?
Yeah, so as far as the 200-foot setback, we can't really go to the east any farther from the current location because of the septic system and the steep slope. And then to the north and east, that where the slope isn't quite so great, it would be uncomfortably close to our neighbor to the north. I think they would be able to look out their kitchen window, and that proposed place would be very close to their home. And if we were granted the variance, we'd be happy to comply with any conditions that were added to that variance.
Do your neighbors sometimes comment on seeing your vehicles on your driveway?
No,
No.
never. But we did have before we had this structure, we would have a great deal of ice, and it was very difficult to go up and down the hill in the wintertime. Even our plow couldn't do it.
Our plow got stuck
plow
2 years ago.
Got
The
towed
plow service.
because it's very steep where we live, and so there's a lot of ice, and so having this carport has been really made such a difference to us for safe walking.
Why didn't you put a garage door on it?
We were planning to do that eventually.
Yeah. I guess as long as it doesn't have a garage door, you call it a carport?
Correct.
Is that kind of the thing? Yeah, but your plan was to make it a garage?
Eventually.
Yeah.
Yes, and we intend to repaint it, whatever is needed. We want to follow the rules. We were just not aware of them before.
So you had no knowledge that structures in the Riverway are required to be earth tone or summer vegetation colors?
Correct. We weren't aware of that. I hope this doesn't sound like an excuse, but the truth of the matter is that we've been living there for just 2 years full-time, and we previously lived in Minnesota, and the contractors would automatically get the permits in Minnesota. I was under the mistaken assumption that that would occur with this contractor. We didn't specifically speak to that, but the assumption was that they would obtain the permit.
So there was no post with a little sign on it with a permit stapled to it the way you'd see at a normal building site?
No.
And that didn't raise any question in your minds? Yeah.
This is the first time in my life that I've had a structure built by a contractor.
And did he built that concrete block wall there too?
I think he contracted that out with a concrete person.
I see.
And we are, yeah. The other thing is that the contractor did come up with these, metal, what's it called?
Corrugated metal.
Corrugated metal is the structure around it, and he did say that he tried to match the color of our house, but it's a little brighter, so definitely that should be repainted. And we intend to do all of these things if we are able to be approved by you.
But somehow your neighbor to the south turned you in, huh? Is that what happened?
I don't know if they turned us in, but I guess they're against the variance.
Yeah,
We assumed that you had some aerial view that popped up the structure, but maybe it was the person to the south.
No, our county doesn't charge enough in taxes to hire enough of those people to go out and look for violations. So most of our enforcement comes from neighbors, talking about neighbors, yeah.
We'll have to have them over for coffee sometime.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Sometimes we hear from the towns if there hasn't been a building permit acquired, for example, as well.
Yeah, yeah. But, and we're not unique. That happens in most of the United States nowadays, I find. Enforcement of the zoning laws is by neighbors. You had a question down there.
We live in a world of rules and regulations. And the more population in the county, the more rules and regulations. Tell me how it happened that you never contacted the DNR or the state of Wisconsin or Googled the rules or asked anybody about building?
Well, the truth is, we relied upon this contractor, to be honest. We certainly did not intend to violate any rules. We were rather ignorant about them, however.
Have you been, well, I was going to ask, because I'm a lawyer, I was going to ask if you've been thinking about suing this contractor for getting you into this problem here.
Absolutely.
E. Stephen Moncada, it says on the application. Is that,
Yeah,
that's
correct.
the person?
He hasn't responded to text, email, phone calls
Uh-huh,
since then.
uh-huh, yeah. Okay, so, anything else you want to say? And we'll see if anybody else in the room has comment to make. No?
I don't think so, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Well, understand you got a predicament here. Is there anybody else in the room who wants to speak about this application? No, there isn't. I'm not going to close the hearing yet, Julie, just in case, because this one, I can't quite predict where we might go here. Obviously, I'm not that you folks are ever predictable, but yes, Mr. Telejohn.
If we deny this application for variance and they had to remove the structure, would that concrete pad have to be removed, or would it be allowed to stay there?
That would be allowed to stay, I believe, although it'd be a structure, it would not be visible at ground level.
And that would be a structure in itself as well, so that would be removed as well, so.
I suppose,
Site restored with vegetation.
I suppose we could give them a variance for that. Yeah, on some sort of hardship grounds, uniqueness, I don't know, just how we'd figure out the justification for it. It would be nice if the DNR had given us some clues how we could deal with a thing like this. I think, well, let me, is anybody else burning to say something? Otherwise, I'm leaning to saying no, but kind of putting it off a month and asking the staff to get out there and look at that, cutting the tree situation for locating it somewhere along the driveway at the edge of the 200-foot setback and see what the terrain actually is and how many trees would go, and if that's compared to all the trees on the lot, if it's a serious thing. That's where I'm kind of leaning in at the moment, but I'm open-minded about it.
Well, since you mentioned being a lawyer, my question to you would be, if they have pending litigation, could that possibility have an effect on the decision we make?
Let me see. If I give advice here and they follow it and then they don't win their lawsuit, would they come to my insurance company?
Mr. Chair, I would suggest that you don't answer that question, so.
Yeah.
I can take and I can refer to what an accessory structure is defined as underneath NR 118, and I'll read accessory structure to you. Accessory structure means a subordinate structure, the use of which is incidental to and customarily found in connection with the principal structure or the use of the property. Accessory structures include, but are not limited to, detached garages, sheds, barns, gazebos, patios, decks, both detached and attached, swimming pools, hot tubs, fences, retaining walls, driveways, parking lots, sidewalks, detached stairways and lifts. So that's why that concrete slab would fall underneath either a driveway or a parking lot or a sidewalk. So that's where we would still consider that an accessory structure, which would have to be set back 200 feet off the river. So I just thought that that was relevant for the file, and that we defined what an accessory structure was.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a thought.
Yeah.
If we do have them do delay and have them look at it, I guess some of the considerations running around in my mind are, let's say we require it to be painted, repainted. I'm thinking of maybe that neighbor to the north a little bit. So I'd like all that considered, you know, what are we doing if we deny it unless they move that? How much are we causing as far as erosion factors and stuff by removing a structure, having to straighten that all out and then have it put in another place to take down some trees? I guess I would think some thoughts on that would help me come to a decision of whether, you know, what was appropriate in this situation.
You'd like a little table of pros and cons, kind of? A little exploration by the expert staff? I'm assuming that if we allowed it, not only would the garage have to be one of the earth tone or native vegetation colors, but so would the house. That this would be the opportunity to get both into compliance if we're going to be affecting the color in the neighborhood. We are required to follow standards about visibility from the river, but a factor is visibility from the neighbors and visibility from the road. People who drive by this national riverway and expect to see it look natural in some sense of the term, the way it looked in 1972, anyway.
Well,
What are the rest of you thinking?
well, isn't that house been there for a while? I mean, that would be
Yeah, I imagine
that color would be grandfathered in on the house.
It would, but
But-
as a condition of
Well,
you know,
I mean, it
granting the
doesn't-
variance on the
I mean,
garage.
it looks like it's more earth tone. But I would, right now, I'd like to wait, but if I had to make a decision now, I'd say change the color of the structure and leave it, but based on erosion and,
Mr. Chair, I
that's
just
just mine.
got a message in that from Kelly Becker on our land use team, and she's got some more pictures, and I can't get to them on that computer without taking and logging off. So could we take a short break in that? And I've got other pictures of down the driveway in that other spot, so you can see the trees and the terrain, if that would help.
All right.
If we could
maybe
just take a
can
short
learn
break.
just as much as we would from the other way. I see that the neighbors, there's a wooden fence separating the northern neighbor for at least a part of the extent. I'm looking at page 89 of our packet. Along the north edge, there's a arrow pointing to and a label that says wooden fence, but it doesn't show how long it is.
There's a fence that shows in this picture here.
No, well, yes, but this is a different, up here is where the label is. You know, if we're talking about the potential for moving this garage up to here on page 89, that fence would provide some separation from the neighbor, some buffering of the view, depending on how long and how tall it is. come on up to our microphone, Mr. Lopno, and become a further part of our record. This one is likely to be appealed, so let's get it right.
The fence is approximately just above waist high.
I see. So
It's just
about,
it's more for looks than function.
then for separation, and it's a wooden, like, vertical stakes type of fence?
It's horizontal, however,
Horizontal.
There's a very short, maybe like maybe 8 feet wide. It's a taller fence that they put up
Oh,
as a barrier, but it's very short, like
Yeah.
8 feet wide.
Mr. Chair, if I may add, that the house was built in 1957, and I believe much of this structure, like the fence, was built then. It's very old and kind of, it's not strong.
uh-huh. Mhm. And are the posts of the fence on your side or their side?
They're on ours.
They're on our side. We share a tram, and actually the tram is on our side.
On theirs.
Okay.
Even though they constructed it originally, I believe.
So the fence is yours, you could modify it if you
Yes.
wish to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, Mr. Chair, thank you for just giving me a few minutes to pull up these pictures. So this is standing close to the Y of their property, looking down the driveway towards Bass, or Black Bass Road.
Easy for you to say.
And so, you know, and that wooden fence is over here on the left. That the depression area would be over here on the right. So
Got it.
here's a similar kind of picture. You can see the trees around the house, several big, large evergreen trees, some large oaks as well around the building site.
But everything is small along the driveway in that area, apparently.
Yeah, you see, you've already seen this picture. Okay, so here's another picture, and so here's the other little shed. So here's that Y. So that 200-foot setback is probably going to be, you know, someplace in here. Looks like that's a large red pine. Let me see if I can zoom in. Those- Yeah, and so
And
that's
there's the
the
neighbor.
neighbor's house there.
And
So
there's
some
chain link.
smaller stuff, but it looks like there's a couple big red pine here, a fairly large red pine.
How about on the right side of the driveway?
Okay. I'm gonna have to go to a different
Mr. Chair,
picture.
that's where the steep drop off.
It looked to me like there was some space there, but let's see. That was fairly level, according to the contour map we've got. That one. Oh, yeah, that does drop off. But you got a little turnaround right there,
Correct.
too?
It's
Yeah.
not exactly level.
No, it's not.
Yeah, so this here is Black Bass Road coming through here too. Yeah, so you can see most of their property is very heavily wooded, I would say, and it does have a lot of understory in this area. I've also got some other pictures that we can go through.
Before you change that, if we had thought about making a move that, would that be on the left side as we're looking at that driveway or the right side?
And that, so like right here, and that would be on the south side of the driveway or the north side of the driveway. So as you drive in the driveway, it would be on the left-hand side. So it'd be the same side as it is currently.
So in either case, requiring it to be moved in that, we'd be subjecting them to a longer walk, maybe across a icy driveway to get to the house.
Yes, correct. And so that wooden fence that the applicants talked about, we can kind of see that here. It's an open fence, but it is relatively short, so you can
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of see how long it is. There's a power transformer over here as well. Okay, I got some extra pictures. So that's the house there. You can kind of see the fence over here. Again. The existing shed wouldn't be large enough for a car. A little bit better picture probably of the retaining wall. You can kind of see the dirt just slumped here. So the exposed edge of the slab, I'm sure that wasn't like that originally. It's moved that much.
There's going to be some serious landscaping work making that permanent, isn't there? Stabilizing that.
Right. And I got a couple other pictures here.
And if I can just add, again, our septic system is
Yep.
just to the
Yeah, there are your pump outs right there.
Yep. And then the drain field would be off here to the east too before it drops into that big hole. So I can just kind of zoom in so that you're able to see. Looks like they did make a pretty conscious attempt, you know, and that with that large oak tree that close to the building to try to save the trees, you know, so,
There's no rain gutter on that roof, is there?
no.
So, rain's
That would be
just,
something in that I would suggest, just if it was my own building, in that if they are gonna build a retaining wall here, you know, that they probably move the wall out a little farther, maybe build it around that tree or something, but definitely put a gutter on there to direct the water away from the backside of the wall. Otherwise, that's probably what caused this in the first place, so.
yeah.
This is the backside of the wall, or the south side. Maybe that's a better picture of the house color too. You can kind of see the color,
Much
But-
darker.
you know.
Was there a sale on red siding that day?
whatever the color of the siding was originally, it's been painted that color.
Your contractor chose to paint it red?
No, the contractor did not paint the house red. It's just that corrugated aluminum.
Yeah.
that He was trying to match our house to the best of his ability. I don't know if there was a lighter shade of red or, I don't know. He said that that was the closest that he had available.
Well, suppose we go about it this way. It's just a straw donkey here that everybody can kick at and improve upon. Let's see, how would we, what justification for the variance would there be? That the uniqueness of the property, that doesn't work too well because most of our riverway properties are steep and have very limited areas you can build upon. This is just another one of them. Let's see, what are the other standards we have to meet besides uniqueness? I'm sure it's here in our report.
Mr. Chair, this is kind of a draft document. It doesn't include a recommendation, but it does include
Doesn't
some
include the
evaluation of
standards?
conclusions.
Okay, thanks, Mike. The record should show that Mr. Wozniak has just given us a kind of a draft from his department. Did you provide one to the applicants, Mr. Wozniak? Please do.
Mr. Chair, I did skip over this part because it was in the application, but the applicant tried to go through and explain how the criteria were being met with this proposed use. I've also got it on the screen here right now where it talks about unnecessary hardship, unique property features, and then if it was contrary to public interest at all. So I don't know if you want me to go down through this or if it's sufficient that it was in the application and in the packet.
Help me find the page number, if you will, please. Is that page 91? No, that's a conditional use permit.
I'm not
No.
really sure what packet page it is, but it is in here. I'll just go through it, and that, so it says that to go over the details of their request. We had a carport constructed and unintentionally located it too close to the ordinary high water mark. The standard requires a 200-foot setback. We carefully located the carport so it would not be visible from the St. Croix and at least 40 feet from the bluff line. Explain how enforcement of the ordinance.
No, that doesn't, it doesn't matter what their motivations were. We deal with the facts
Yep.
as it exists. But to say that they knew about the 40-foot setback but didn't know about the 200-foot setback just challenges credibility.
Yeah.
This contractor is,
Yep. So I'm reading directly what was put in their
You're reading what
application. It's
they-
not my
what they said.
words. So anyway. So would unreasonably prevent you from using the property for a proposed use and why the standards in the ordinance should not apply to your property. They wrote, the property's septic system would not allow the carport to be built immediately east of its current location, abiding by the standard of 200 feet from the high water mark to the north or south of the property would result in the destruction of many mature trees, and furthermore, the possible northern locations are too visible from our neighbor's window. We're on unique physical property features. Describe the unique characteristics of your property with respect to lot size, shape, topography, and other physical limitations that make literal enforcement of the ordinance impractical. Were any of these limitations created by you or by past property owners? The area drop-off immediately east of the carport is where the septic system is located. The septic system was installed by the previous owner. The carport roof slopes to the east and away from the bluff line. Our home blocks much of the view of the carport, and the carport cannot be seen from the St. Croix River. Other locations for the carport would entail the removal of many mature trees and contrary to responsible stewardship of our land. We removed no trees for the construction of the current carport location. The carport is at the top of a steep incline and would be unsafe to walk up the incline, especially during winter weather. What other options have you considered and why were they not chosen? Other options would have necessitated the removal of many mature trees, building uncomfortably close to our neighbor to the north, interfered with the septic system, and/or required an unsafe walk up the steep driveway to the house. Explain how granting this variance is consistent with protecting the public interest. In particular, explain how it will impact sensitive public resources and adjacent properties. This variance will allow our carport to have an appropriate distance from and limited visibility to our neighbor to the north. There is no visibility of the modest-sized structure from the St. Croix River. The roof line drains away from the river bluff. How is granting this variance consistent with the spirit and intent of the ordinance? In particular, how will it meet the purpose of the zoning districts in which the property is located? Please refer to the purpose statement for your zoning district and the St. Croix County zoning ordinance. There's a couple typos in that sentence. The modest structure's height is not visible from the river, required no tree removal, and is obscured from the neighbor's residence to the north. We love the St. Croix and intend to be the best possible stewards of the land. That was their responses to the 6 questions in the application.
I don't have a solution, folks. I
get-
can't.
I
agree
guess you
with
would
that.
have some discussion on uniqueness as the fact of where the trees are located and/or neighbors' considerations. I don't know.
Yeah, we have people building right next door to their neighbors all the time. And, you know, they're just the minimum side yard setback, and there they are, and neighbors say, well, that's the way it works. When I moved in here, I knew somebody might build a garage. You know, that's to be expected. I'm not gonna tell anybody else how they can vote, but I am not persuaded that they meet the standards for a variance. And that means out it comes. And then they can look for a compliant location if they want a garage and submit an application for a compliant location. That would be the outcome of it. But that doesn't mean it can't be a 4-to-1 decision or a 3-to-2 or wherever you want to go. But you will have to make findings. You know, that's follow the law.
Yeah.
There's likely to be somebody in this watershed who'll start a lawsuit if they think it's vulnerable.
I agree with the chairman's comments earlier about weighing it, about the trees versus leaving the shed there. And I also agree with the comment that Mr. Peterson just made. I don't like it that this is done without, you know, we've had other people come here and they want to put up something and they're doing it the right way. They haven't built it, but they want to put it up and we deny it because it's in violation of a setback or some rule, and they don't get it. So here we have a situation where these people have went ahead and built this building without following the rules or the regulations, and now we leave that building standing. We reward bad behavior. But by the same token, I agree with Mr. Malik's comments earlier to go down and tear down a bunch of trees, which I'm totally against, to move this shed someplace else. I do not agree with that.
You're agreeing with Mr. Peterson, just to clarify the record there. Yep.
Yes. I guess off the top of my head, and here I go against my own feeling here, end up rewarding bad behavior of letting the building stand, paint it a different color, and build a secure retaining wall on the side that's on the septic side of that building, and put up an eaves trough, and barring no expense to make that it doesn't erode anymore. And in my heart of hearts, I have questioned that, but I guess that's what I would vote.
I have another thought on my earlier statement. Although that was in my thoughts, I'm thinking more and more, listening to the arguments from everybody else, that I'm tending to think that, yes, maybe it would be better to refuse it, and at least that gives them the opportunity to, if they want to file a lawsuit or whatever they want to do, to recover whatever costs from that misappropriation, however it occurred. Seemed to make sense to me.
If there's a majority of you who want to approve it, I don't think I can kind of successfully talk out of both sides of my mouth and help you with the reasons, with the findings that meet the standards. So I would suggest, if you want to go that route, that you give the staff till next month to do their best to draft reasons using the available material and putting it in the best possible way so it'll stand up if it's challenged in court.
Yeah, we
You follow me?
postponed that roadway one for further information. I don't see any reason why we can't postpone this one.
It would be for the specific reason that you're going to get staff assistance in writing up findings and conclusions that will support your decision to grant the variance with conditions. I understand that. You got the color condition and the retaining wall condition.
And give them a chance to evaluate other sites where it might fit.
Mr. Chair, if I could just for your information, for an August meeting, we only had one application, and it was withdrawn. So if we carry anything over from today, that's what you would have on your agenda, just so you are clear on that.
Yep. So in terms of staff workload and the board's workload and homework packet and so on, it would fit pretty easy.
I'll make a motion that we send this back for further study and other alternative solutions possibly, and see it in a month.
I'll second that.
Is that specific enough for you, Mr. Cheeza? Do you think you understand what the board members are looking for?
So you'd like staff to evaluate that other area, and you would also like staff to come back with findings of fact and conclusions of law to support an approval and some criteria or conditions, and that if it is approved, that staff would recommend for the site, like painting it, doing something with the erosion control, stormwater management, that kind of stuff.
I guess
Think
I'm
you read
thinking,
Mr. Telejohn's mind.
no pros and cons wouldn't be a safer search rather than, are we preconceiving a determination by sending it back to look for approval rather than?
No, I'm just looking for, maybe I'm looking for two different directions, and which is,
Sounds
whether
like
we,
you are.
if we would accept the variance as it's sitting, what conditions would have to apply
And what findings would support it?
to support it? And is there any other location on the property that will cause minimal damage?
So that we could deny it, but they could build in another place.
Right.
Yeah, to your point. Makes it a little more complicated, Mr. Cheez-It. You kind of have to talk out of both sides of your mouth, which, like I declined to do here. But I'm sure you're up to it.
So we do have, some stuff here, and I can go through, and maybe this would be enough for the findings of fact and conclusions of law, like I mentioned. But
Don't we have to vote on this motion?
The motion to send it back
Yeah.
for study? We do, let's see, was there, there was a second.
Yeah.
But we're in the discussion phase of it, if you want to
Well,
entertain it.
is this discussion pertinent to the motion?
I think it is, because you were
Because
asking,
it's just continuing, postponing this meeting, or lengthening this meeting, and for no reason until next month.
well, maybe, I thought he was trying to see which of these you already like and which ones he needs to change. But you've probably got enough guidance already, Jason, to,
okay, because we do kind of have it spelled out here already, but
in terms of approval.
in terms of approval, yeah, I guess I didn't even realize that our staff had drafted it that way. So, but again, that was back in June.
Yeah. You don't expect me to agree that I'm persuaded. You've been over that already.
I would
All
just say pardon, there isn't, under the hardship measure, there is an alternative location, but there are impacts associated with locating the building in that location, I think is the key point that's been discussed.
Sure. And under was the condition caused by the applicant? Their answers say it was because of the location of the septic system by a prior owner. But you'll do your best to come up with justifications for that kind of a decision. So I guess we're ready for a vote then on putting it off for a month with the direction that's been given to the staff. All in favor should vote aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. It's unanimous. Okay, you got your work cut out for you. Gentlemen, let's see, it's 10:14. We've been at it about 2 hours, but I guess I'm willing to jump right into the next one if the rest of you are. Okay. Who's making the presentation on the yacht club one?
Oh, that one?
All right.
As I've been doing, let's see. Another draft decision.
Okay, thanks.
Note that one. You have, Board of Adjustment members, Mr. Chair, you have an item to consider a conditional use permit applied for by the St. Croix Yacht Club regarding a proposal that would require filling and grading related to depositing dredge spoils, or dredge material, I should say, probably largely sand, on the Highline Beach area in the town of St. Joseph. This triggers a CUP requirement because it would involve 10,000 square feet or more of site area where the dredge material would be deposited. And I would, well, let's go to the staff report here so I can provide you more details. And I'd just like to thank the representatives of the Yacht Club for bearing with us. We have a busy agenda today, and so you've gotten the opportunity to see this board conduct its business. Let's see. Club notice. Staff report.
You call it an opportunity, they probably call it a burden.
Yeah. Well stated. Just some details on this. The site address for this property is 201 Riverview Acres Road. It's located in the northeast quarter of Section 2, Town of St. Joseph. Zoning-wise, it's in the, for purposes of this conditional use permit, it's in the Lower St. Croix Riverway Overlay District. It is also, the project area would also be considered in the Shoreland Overlay District, as well as the floodplain along the St. Croix River. And included, as is customary, is a staff report, which I'm running through now, and the conditional use permit application, and there was a recommendation for approval of this item from the town of St. Joseph. The request from the Yacht Club, they own approximately 10 acres of land. There's actually 3 parcels. I'll pull up show some maps that illustrate this shortly, but that are considered the Highline Beach property. The subject property is basically across the St. Croix River from the King Power Plant, and there is actually a transmission line, I believe a 345 kV transmission line that comes across from the King plant, and there is a high power pole on that spit of land that's where the proposed placement of dredge materials would occur, and hence the name Highline Beach, I suppose. The project is associated with a dredging project that the Yacht Club is proposing that would involve, there's a ridge of sand that has developed, and this is a periodic issue
for the recreational use, the ability for boats to pull up and enjoy a place to pull up off the river. And there's a little lagoon harbor area as well that's associated with the property. But a ridge of sand develops offshore, roughly 75 to 100 feet, and the boats pulling in and out, maybe some of the natural action of the river depositing material as well. And it interferes with safe navigation to the property. And so the proposed project is to remove the ridge. That is, the dredging is subject to DNR approval and not what you're being asked to act on today, but the depositing of the dredge spoils above the ordinary high water line, again covering more than 10,000 square feet or more, is what is triggering this conditional use permit request. Just a little overview of the site. Again, there's several parcels. The property that would be involved with this, essentially this peninsula-like area, and there's a little channel into the little lagoon harbor area, and so just on the other side of that as well. There is a power line that runs through the property, as I previously noted, and the yacht club, I believe, has some electrical service boxes that allow the boats to maybe connect to. They could further clarify that in terms of infrastructure on the Highline Beach area. As part of their proposal, they submitted basically a beach nourishment, slope grooming, channel cut proposal that does show roughly the area where the dredging would occur, but also illustrates the areas and kind of highlighted in a red-orange color that I've noted with these arrows where the dredged sand would be deposited on the property. And I'd note, just for the interest of the board, and I do have a drawing which I can pull up which would illustrate this, but the ordinary high water line mark is at 680 elevation, and the regulatory flood elevation, just for your interest, would be 692 in this area of the river. All of this area is below the regulatory flood elevation for your interest. I'd like to note that county records indicate past dredging activities for this same property. In 1988, there was a similar request approved by the Board of Adjustment. It involved, and I could have my numbers I believe they're accurate, but it was approximately 2,200 cubic yards or thereabouts of material that was approved to be placed roughly within the same beach area, more or less. Again, that was in 1988. And then again in 2015, there was another dredge project. So this has to be done periodically. And in 2015, the material, I think there was an application, but I believe it was withdrawn to the county for placement of the dredged material in 2015, and the material was barged over to Stillwater and I believe subsequently used for construction fill material. And again, it was in the a similar, maybe 2,400 cubic yards or so of dredged material that was removed from the just offshore area of that Highline Beach. In 2015, there was a minor
bit of grading that involved a land use permit. It was not associated with placement of dredged material. The applicants, in their application, they provided explanation and some background material, but in essence, the dredged material to improve the navigation safety, the access to and from the Highline Beach, would entail approximately 3,300 cubic yards of material being dredged, and they're proposing to place that material, as noted on that drawing I had included, on the Highline Beach area above the ordinary high water mark. And their proposal also includes, they've indicated their intent is to plant additional trees or possibly replace ash trees that are on the property that may be subject to the emerald ash borer. Again, I do have some photos I'll pull up in just a bit that some ortho photos that give you a little view of better view of the how that property looks and what the existing cover on it looks like. They've indicated the intent of the project is to create safe water navigation to and from the property and to protect the existing tree line. The erosion of the beach area that occurs based on repeated high water events and also maybe more to the shoreline, the boats pulling in and out and pulling sand back from the beach area does erode the material around the tree roots of existing tree cover. And so the placement of the dredged material would be an opportunity to restore some of that material that, again, erodes away for various reasons. As I already noted, they're intending to work with an arborist to remove affected ash trees and replace with trees native to the river. I don't have a detailed plan on that submitted as part of this application. The applicant, representatives of the applicant could clarify what their intentions are in that regard. They're suggesting they believe the goals are consistent with the applicable provisions in the Riverway Overlay District and maintaining the value of the property and preserving scenic and natural character of the characteristics of the water and related land of the lower St. Croix Riverway. Essentially, this has been used for this purpose, the Highline Beach, for decades, and the intent is to continue to be able to use it and keep it viable for that boating recreational use. And the applicant has indicated they do not see negative impacts to the public health, safety, or general welfare associated with the work. And generally, they've also indicated the work would be performed in a fairly tight window of time, and they may be able to better speak to when the river level and conditions would be appropriate for the project to proceed, given the high water conditions we've experienced this summer. We haven't received any comments from DNR. This was referred to Kay Lutz for the Riverway aspect of it. It's, of course, a conditional use permit, not a variance. They are subject to obtaining a dredging permit from DNR, and DNR actually referred the yacht club to the county to address the riverway requirements for the grading filling that you're dealing with today. Town of St. Joseph has recommended approval of the conditional use permit. There are not any scenic easements, any easements of the that would apply to the jurisdiction of the National Park Service on this property. I've noted in the staff report the basically the criteria within the Riverway Overlay District for conditional use permits. If there's any questions that arise on how this request conforms with those criteria, we can certainly, staff can try to answer that for the board. As is customary, your options on this are approval of the request, denial of the request, or table and postpone for more information. I would like to indicate, and I'll pull up the draft decision document that staff have crafted for your consideration, but be aware that because there are also triggers for land use permits in riverway, shoreland, and floodplain ordinances for this. And so if there's questions about how temporary erosion control measures would be implemented, for example, to keep the dredge material that's extracted typically is has a lot of water in it. It's pulled from the river, and you want to avoid that material draining right back into the river. So those temporary measures are important. I've dealt with many dredge projects throughout my career, working much of it along major rivers, so I'm quite familiar with these issues. And but then in the long term, the idea is to stabilize that dredge material either through structural means or through vegetation to try to keep it in place to the greatest degree possible, given that this is in the floodplain and water rises up and down, and for the health of the trees and vegetation that exist on the woodlot, on the little peninsula area where this is being done, it would be important to keep that material as stable as possible. And if filling in around the tree roots or adding additional trees or any ground vegetation. And I would note, just for the information of the board, the past materials that the county has on file for this, in 2015, when the dredge project was done, there was quite a significant plan put together. The applicant used Bar Engineering at that time. They did propose establishment of some beach grasses and sedges in some areas, and that did not go forward either. Either there wasn't a comfort level between the county and the applicant, or it was a timing thing, and they needed to move forward and get the project done. But there has been a lot of work and study about how to best vegetate this project area and keep it as stable as possible. But the reality is it's subject to movement of the sand. It's largely a sandy peninsula, and I'm just going to take a moment before you open the hearing and maybe have any questions for representatives of the applicant to just show you a couple other images that I think would be useful for you to see. Let's see, where is that folder? Share. There we go. Okay. Let's see.
I mentioned to you the materials would have to be placed above the ordinary high water mark. On this drawing, the green outline is elevation 680, which would be the ordinary high water mark. And also, just for your interest, the 692 is the flood elevation, and to be honest, that would hit further back on the yacht club property. So essentially, the whole area where the project would occur is below the regulatory flood elevation. In reality, think of this: you're taking material that's in the floodplain and you're placing it on land, or at least land that's above water in low water conditions, and you're not going to put enough fill to elevate it above that 692 flood elevation. So it's essentially, it's not really displacing water and in that regard in the floodplain. And a couple other we have some ortho photos from the county's GIS data available, and you can see that high line coming through the property and a view. There are some residents up above a bluff that abut the general area, but are somewhat removed from the actual Highline Beach. I'll call it the peninsula. A little more detail, you can actually see some boats pulled up in this photo, and you're starting to see the trees that exist on it, but it really is a sandy spit of land there. This is just zoomed further out, and property owners and addresses noted. You can see there's a couple subdivisions that abut the general area but are up higher elevation-wise from where this project area is located. There is an access road that comes through one of them, an access drive, but the dredging activity would basically, a barge would bring in the equipment and the material would be placed on the property and not transported on that access road. I presume if any equipment were needed for any of the grading or tree work, that could possibly come down that driveway area. And lastly, let's see if I have anything else that's pertinent here. This is just a view with contours, and again, you can kind of see the relief and the slope preservation or bluff areas do rise up from the property, but the activity would occur on either side of this channel into the harbor area, I'll call it, and then along the sort of the beach frontages on the river side of that peninsula. And let's go back. Actually, last thing I'll do. I did distribute hard copy to Board of Adjustment members and provided a copy to the applicant of draft findings. I can hold off on going through this if you would prefer, Mr. Chair, if you wish to take public comments on this, because any additional information that may be forthcoming may affect your views on the on a potential action on this.
Dredging, is that, you do that when the water's high or low or whenever?
Well, my experience is you don't want to, I don't know where exactly the water level is at now, but the flood conditions we've had, much of this area was probably underwater. So for safety and just to have a place to place the dredge materials, typically it's not done in high water conditions. It would be preferable to do it at more in a normal water level or even a lower level.
Well, you talked about planting vegetation to secure the sand that's been dredged.
Yes,
You'd have to do that when the water's low, right?
correct, correct. And preferably it gets established well enough so that when the water comes up, it's not lost. Challenging to plant and establish in the floodplain.
Other questions from board members?
Yeah, Mike, when they move this 3,300 cubic yards, how much higher will it raise the ground where they're dumping it?
You know, I might defer. I don't have a plan that details a like a proposed elevation, like a. They've indicated on the. Well, let me pull up a drawing and I can relate. I can allude to it, and then the applicant could maybe clarify. This is a little detail of that plan that was approved with the application materials that were provided. And it shows proposed areas. What I would tell you is you're probably talking about not more than a few feet of rise, but it depends a lot on how much water's in the material, how it spreads out. You know, you tend to have with these dredge projects, it's how well the material is contained. This is likely very sandy material. It's material, much of it which has been pulled back from that very beach, and so it's less the gunky, silty kind of material that you can get in areas where there's maybe more clay or more organics that might find their way to you know, into the river. So I don't have an exact answer for that. What I would tell you is if you are generally comfortable with this request, we can ask that for that detail as part of the land use permit requirement that would be, again, for all three ordinances that are applicable, and also more detail about erosion control measures as well as stabilization, whether it's through the vegetation or whether it might be through any other means like selectively use of erosion control fabrics or other measures.
Let me ask you what I think is the one pertinent question about this. You said earlier that the deposition of the dredged materials would not raise the level above 692, the regulatory flood elevation, meaning it would not raise any area high enough that buildings could be built, structures could be built.
Yeah, based on the existing elevations out there, I can't see. I mean, you're talking about from that ordinary high water, you're talking about going up over 12 feet. Again, the applicant maybe can speak to this as well with based on any discussions they've had with their contractor they're intending to use.
Anybody else in the room want to speak to this application? First, those in favor, and if you gentlemen are with this will be your opportunity. If you disagree with anything that Mike has said, and in particular his proposed findings, conclusions, and decision, please point out the areas in which you disagree.
Mr. Chairman, this is Brian Larson. I'm the CEO of the Yacht Club, or the Commodore. With me today is Rob Ruckel. He's our treasurer and has been for quite a few years. He was involved with the 2015 dredging, and that was primarily on the inner harbor, has been described. Our primary focus is, as described, is on the outside shores because of that sand being eroded out. What we're trying to do is just reestablish that, and so that we can continue to use it in a safe manner. We have talked with 2 different dredge units and dredge companies, one of which provided these topology on hydrographic photographs here. We have a plan in place with them of what we want to accomplish, and the detailed planning for the siltation and things like that we could build on top of all of that and provide that for the permit. Rob, do you have anything else, or?
No, I guess I would just, to the point about how much we're adding, you know, when you look at the trees there in the red areas and you go on the beach, we don't have any photographs here, but you can see exposed roots to those trees. They're mature trees. They've been there a long time. You can see along there. Our goal is to sort of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, help make the beach more usable, navigable, and also at the same time preserve as much of that tree line as we can by adding some material along that ridge where those trees are starting to get eroded.
To that point, I want to add a couple things. On the south side of the beach, well, actually the whole beach and the point, the ash borers have really decimated a lot of trees. The good news is the arborist that we're working with has taken us up further up the hill where our property is, and there's a lot of hardwoods up there, maples and some oaks and some different trees that he says, well, you have the saplings right here. Transplant them down and bring them down. I'll show you how to do it, how to put berries around it to keep them in place and things like that. So that's our first step. Additional vegetation, that's something we would work with Mike on to find out what would be the appropriate types of vegetation and where we would place them. So that's our plan that's in place, and this arborist is actually planting trees in some property that we have downriver just across from Afton. It's called Catfish Beach. We're having $5,000 worth of trees planted in there this year. So we are trying to be stewards of our property as much as possible.
Any further questions for these gentlemen, the officers of the club? No? Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room who wants to speak about this application, for, against, or neutral? Okay, I suspect this is not very controversial. The scientific aspects of it will be left to the DNR for their permit. So I guess we're ready, Mike, for you to tell us what we don't, although we have conclusions of law, the burden of proof is far less with respect to a conditional use permit than it is for a variance. So we're really talking about a list of conditions specific to this particular site and this specific proposal. So I guess since the applicants have had a chance to look at it and have no suggestions for change, and there's nobody else in the room who has an interest in it, and we've had a few minutes to read it here, I'm inclined to close the hearing, take no more evidence anymore, no more witness testimony, no documents, none of that, and proceed to a decision on what the conditions should be to grant this requested permit.
Mr. Chair, before you do that, if I could just maybe add one more clarification, that is that normally when the board is acting on a proposal for development activity,
you're very concerned about stormwater management and how the runoff is being handled from impervious surfaces. Well, this kind of project doesn't involve creating impervious surfaces, so it's a different scenario. Though, frankly, the water that falls, it runs off into the river, and what does infiltrate into the ground finds its way into the river in this situation as well. So I think that's less of a concern, and again, what would be dealt with, I think, probably through the land use permitting process, I think we could effectively deal with is how do you keep it from running off, the dredge material running off into the river while the activity is going on, and then once it's done, how do you keep it in place as best you can so that the same thing doesn't have to be done again in a short amount of time rather than a decade or, in one case, 20-something years later. That's, I'm sure, what the yacht club would prefer, so that they're not having to engage in this over and over. So that's what we would be focusing on with the land use permit process. Just a little more refinement of what they've offered in writing and said to us verbally.
Great. The hearing is closed. Board members, what are your wishes? I move approval by adoption of the staff recommendation.
Second.
Second by Peterson. Further discussion? All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Request was, I'm filling it in right now and I'm going to sign it. Our next item of business is an update on the Baldwin Airport.
Mr. Chair, Mike will be doing that one as well.
Board of Adjustment members, Mr. Chair, you when you acted on the conditional use permit for the Baldwin Airport Properties campground earlier this year, you asked that an update be provided at this meeting. There were some requirements established for the applicant to address by the end of June, and so the purpose of this is to give you an update on how progress is being made to comply with the short-term requirements, especially, but maybe also some of the longer-term requirements. And the brief memo that I included did flag, and we also copied a copy of the decision document in the packet with all of the conditions associated with that campground conditional use permit for the Baldwin Airport properties. In terms of what was expected by the end of June, the junk items located towards the north part of the property, the vegetative cuttings, piles of debris in the shoreland area, and then a review of the sanitary system
to determine if it was of sufficient capacity and functioning to serve the property, facilities on the property, including the campsites approved by the board as part of the CUP. And I would note that our staff inspected the property, did a site visit on July 11th, and they did take some pictures, and some additional activity has occurred since, however, but I'll give you a little update. I just received a communication this morning, actually. Mr. McCauley, the owner and applicant, had indicated he's wasn't available to attend today's meeting. However, just an update he provided. He noted that the ground had finally dried up enough to allow them to install the gravel driveway that was going to be around the perimeter to provide fire access. And so I think they're going to work on that. They think they had tried to start and hadn't been able to proceed because of the wet conditions this year. They've indicated that the junk has been removed from the north end of the property. When our staff was out there, there was actually some flying going on, so they could get down close to where the junk area was. And the vegetation has grown up, so it was a little hard to tell, but there wasn't the junk items visible that had previously been visible. So we're assuming that that has been taken care of, but we'll confirm when we can actually get out there and 100% verify. Mr. McCauley has indicated that he's had Bolt's Plumbing inspect the sanitary system and found it operating well and in compliance. We haven't received a written report on that, and staff will follow up and get something in writing from the plumber that confirms that is the case. Again, I've spoken to the gravel road. In regards to the shoreland vegetated cuttings that were on the property, Mr. McCauley indicated that they still have work to do. They tried to do a burn of the brush piles, but their first attempt failed. He indicated, and this is as of actually as of yesterday evening, that they intend to try again next week, and we'll continue to work at that until they're able to take care of the basically the cut piles of vegetation that remain in that shoreland area, basically 300 feet either side of the waterway.
Mr. Wozniak, let me interrupt you, please.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've got already 3 things you're going to be following up on.
Yep.
So let's put it on the August agenda, and rather than you telling us now, one after the other, that you don't have the final report yet.
Sure.
Let's just wait till then, and then you will have a final report.
We can give you a further update. I think that's fine.
Doesn't that make good sense?
It does.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that frees up Mr. Telejohn to go make some money too.
Mr. Chair, I do have one more announcement that I'd like to do whenever you're ready for it.
Yeah, great. I was going to ask 2 people in the room what they're here for, and I suppose one of them is your announcement, huh?
One of them is my announcement. Abby Coffin, and that if he could stand up, she started with us on Monday, and Abby is our new kind of a mixed position between conservation and code enforcement for our land use team. We haven't had kind of a designated code enforcement position in the past, and so Abby is a UW Eau Claire graduate, and she will be based out of the Baldwin office, probably 90% of the time, just because it's more centrally located in the county, but she will be handling all of our compliance cases and that within the county. And then she will also be helping Tim with some conservation efforts, so, as well. So you'll probably see her at some of these hearings if we have unfortunate after-the-fact cases like we had today, so.
Great. Well, on behalf of the board, welcome. Good to have you on the team. Hope your career goes well. Hope it's not all negative. Does she come with experience, or is this her first job in this field?
She's a recent grad, but she did work with Eau Claire County in their land and water, or yeah, it'd be land conservation department last year as an intern, so.
Yeah, okay, great, great. And I recognize Ms. Kucha, Supervisor number 3, Town of Croix. You're probably here for the Anderson Locknow matter?
Yes, unfortunately, I wasn't able to be here for that, and I was hoping to hear the decision before it made.
Yeah, we didn't make a decision, but the majority desires to find a way to grant the variances requested with conditions. And so we sent it back to the staff for analysis and some more fact-finding regarding the site, I guess. August meeting, yep. Yep, yep. Buy your gas locally. It's good for the economy. See, in terms of announcements, we have an idea what we're going to be doing next in August. And is there anything else? I think I just got an email regarding the CLU people over in Stevens Point, or maybe I've got the letters wrong. Is there a program that Mr. Strange and I are signed up for, maybe?
I saw something like that too.
Center for Land Use thing, reminder, planning and zoning for electric vehicle chargers webinar. No, I haven't signed up for that. It's on Tuesday, July 30th at noon. I think I'll watch the video of it afterwards, but anybody wants to learn about planning and zoning, I suppose that's an opportunity. With that, shall I declare the meeting adjourned? Yeah. Thank you all for your efforts. Thanks for doing your homework.
Hey,
Have a pen if anybody wants autographs.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. Oh, I sure do want your autograph.